Hello there! I'm Luca Ricci and I'm a composer. In today's lesson, we will talk about Gregorian modes and voices. Renaissance counterpoint is an exquisitely horizontal art, based on linear invention. The supporting structures, the vertical relationships between two or more overlapping melodies, are secondary and very simple, being the result of the melodic interest of the composers. It's necessary then to know the needs of the voices and their ability to support melodic lines to fully comprehend the practice and the spirit of the Renaissance. How does voice works in Renaissance music? Vocal counterpoint is based on the fundamental four voices. Soprano, called superior or cantus, contralto, called altus, tenore, called tenor, basso, called bassus. The voices, 2 by 2 at an octave distance, have precise extension correspondences and interesting timbral coloring. The contiguous voices are distanced usually a fourth or a fifth, and this influences on the imitation play of canons and more loose melodic imitations. Every voice's register is divided in a low, middle and high register. In every single composition, however, especially if there are many parts, voices uses not their full extension, but, usually inside a ninth, the middle and low register, or the middle and high register, based on the timbre the author wants to give the piece. In 5 voices pieces, the added voice, quintus, can be any one of the 3 superior voices, never a bass, since one is enough to sustain the whole phonic implant. Usually the quintus is a tenor that insists on the high register, often crossing with the ordinary tenor during the piece. In 6 parts writing, the added voice is called sextus, and in 7 to 8 parts writing there is a various possibilities in what regards the voices to double. In 8 parts writing you can even have the double choir, 2 SATB choir opposed to each other. It must be noted that not all 4 parts pieces have all the voice types. It's in fact easy to find different combinations like SSAT, ATTB, and usually also 3 identical voices with one acting like a bass, like SSAT, SSST, TTTB. With the 3 parts piece, it's identical, keeping in mind that there must always be one low voices never to be doubled, altus, tenor or bassus, that acts as a sustain to the vocal implant. Every voice is moving in the register that's concentrated, avoiding insistence on the high and low limits to avoid the player's fatigue and induce them in changing intonation. Inside the choir, every voice has its own character, an unmistakable individuality. The soprano and the bass are the more extreme parts, thus easily perceptible to the hearing. The alto is an internal voice, while the tenor, being surrounded by 3 voices, is the more cramped one. To be audible, the tenor must control more than the other voices its register, especially with the soprano, staying in a register not higher than the soprano itself, to grant a more full timbre thanks to its harmonics. The tenor can distance himself up to a 12th with the bass, to float, while getting closer, until the cross when the bass sings in a high register. In general, all voices must observe good tension relationships between them, like a security distance to avoid, if not for very brief moments of lyrics interpretation, the total disgregation of the choir or the opposite error of smashing all the voices together. How does melodic lines work in Renaissance music? Renaissance counterpoint is based on the modal system, not on the tonal practice, which will come a century and a half later. The liturgical repertoire is based on the Gregorian system, called Scola Romana, and imitates the melodic character and feeling, with the liberty given to the polyphonic construction and the different sensibility. The profane repertoire, then, even if similar to the liturgical repertoire, is connected to the profane tradition of the Flemish composers, which has always had a propension for a simplified modality, which will then develop into the tonal practice in later centuries. The 4 modal categories, derived from the Gregorian repertoire, has as its base the ending note, called finalis, and subdivided in 4 different scales. Protus with D as the finalis, Deuterus with E as the finalis, Tritus with F as the finalis, Tetrardus with G as the finalis. The Greek names Latinized by medieval theorists, which corresponded in an erroneous way Greek and Latin modes, are the following: Dorian for Protus, Phrygian for Deuterus, Lydian for Tritus, Mixolydian for Tetrardus. Each category is subdivided in authentic mode for when the melody moves around the finalis, in particular around the dominant, and in plagal mode when the melody turns around the finalis itself. From this fact, we can find the 8 medieval modes, octechos. The Gregorian modes are classified as follows. In Gregorian and Renaissance practice, the accidentals are not the same as in tonal practice. We have only 5 possible alterations, which are the C sharp as D sub finalis, E flat, F sharp as G sub finalis, G sharp as A sub finalis, and B flat. The accidentals are a result of the mode's transposition and avoidance of the tritone, which is very dissonant and is usually avoided because of its difficulty to be sung, and not that legend about the devil in music which is still told on improbable YouTube videos. The melodic conduct is very important in Renaissance repertoire and follows some rules that we can extract by analyzing the repertoire. The intervals are subdivided into 2 categories: perfect consonances like the octave and the fifth, imperfect consonances like the third and the sixth. All the other intervals are to be considered as dissonances. A liturgical piece will always start with perfect consonances. If it starts with a unison or an octave, it will end with a unison or an octave. If it starts with a fifth, it will end with an unison, octave, or a fifth. The easiest interval to sing are minor and major second, minor and major third, perfect fourth and fifth, ascending minor sixth, and perfect octaves. It's to be avoided continuous jumps, since they result in a dissonant environment. Or because they become an arpeggio, which has a more instrumental and harmonic character. It's to be avoided the tritone both in jump and linearly, unless the line resolves by moving down a degree. The leaps above the third must resolve in contrary motion by leap or by continuous movement. The line, simple as it may be, must be thought as invention, avoiding everything that contrasts with this character, like in repetition and progression. The optimum is obtained by the research of a linear conduct that alternates degrees and leaps, which will grant a simple melodic line that's both spread and wavy, which will result in a climax point, both at the beginning or ending of the line, and that moves without discontinuity of proceedings. In the next lesson, we will talk about first species counterpoint. See ya!